Go beyond the verses and achieve a deeper understanding of Scripture with the Rebind Study Bible app, an audio experience of the Bible interwoven with expert commentary. The Rebind Study Bible app reads Scripture to you, enriching your comprehension with insights from the world-renowned New International Commentary on the Old and the New Testament in an accessible podcast episode format.
Be not therefore anxious for the morrow. Matthew chapter 6.
Each day will have its troubles, but by God's grace, they can be survived.
Use the Rebind Study Bible app's chat function to ask questions and get answers in real time. That's thought-provoking discussion and analysis rooted in decades of research and wisdom from more than 40 scholars at your fingertips. The Rebind Study Bible app is a new way to experience the Bible with enhanced depth at your own pace in the moments you have. Search the Apple App Store for Rebind Study Bible or go to rebindapp.com/newbooksnetwork for a free 7-day trial.
Greetings from my tub. I'm in here getting 5% cash back when I pay in full with PayPal. No fees, no interest. Make the most of your money this holiday with PayPal. Save the offer in the app.
Ends 12/31. See paypal.com/promo terms. Points can be redeemed for cash and more. Pay in full subject to terms and approval. PayPal link at NMLS 910457.
Hello, friends. Guess who? That's right. It is I, the Replacer. Once again, I've been called on so you can play the new Call of Duty, Black Ops 7. With 3 expansive modes, 18 multiplayer maps, and the tastiest zombie gameplay you've ever freaking seen.
Available November 14th. Pre-order Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Now, rated M for mature.
Welcome to the New Books Network.
I'm Chris Holmes, and this is Burned by Books. Here you'll find interviews with writers you already love, like Jennifer Egan and Rebecca Mackay, mixed in with up-and-coming voices like Alexandra Kleeman and Rumaan Alam. You'll find us wherever you listen to podcasts, but check out previous episodes at burnedbybooks.com and on Instagram and Twitter at burnedbybooks. Let's start the show. Cora is living her best life, happily married in the Hudson Valley, 2 children, a successful husband, and a good job with prospects. But life has other things in mind for her when she meets Sam, also married with children, presumably happy. They begin a flirtation that causes a rift in Cora's conception of reality, in which parallel tracks of her life appear. One fantasy in which her closeness to Sam evolves into a full-blown affair, with sexual desire and a full suite of emotional apexes. In the other track, ordinary life proceeds apace. Children take over the house and all available time and energy, jobs become boring and unfulfilling, friends make absurd and comical life decisions. But Sam exists for Cora in both the invented and physical worlds, and his presence isn't abating. Such is the fascinating conceit of Erin Summers' latest novel, The 10-Year Affair, in which desire and responsibility, happiness and contentment all get run through the washer of Erin's piercing intellect and one-of-a-kind wit. Cora does not dive into the empty swimming pool of infidelity blindly. In fact, her fantasies allow her to check precisely the density of the concrete and the unforgiving depths of that kind of plunge. But if we know anything about humans, it is that when presented an option for self-annihilation, they will take it 9 times out of 10. In a narrative voice that skewers all with delight, we find ourselves wondering whether or not the annihilation might be worth it in the face of COVID, aging, disappointment, and maybe even just boredom. A comic novel of the first rate, Erin Summers has given us a vision of modern infidelity that is less about sex and desire than it is just plain humanity. Erin Summers is a reporter and news editor at Publishers Lunch. Her first novel, Stay Up with Hugo Best, which I cannot recommend enough, was a Vogue Best Book of the Year in 2019. Her writing has appeared in The New Yorker, The Paris Review, The New York Times Book Review, The New Republic, New York Magazine, The Atlantic, Esquire, GQ, The Best American Short Stories, so I guess just all of them. She lives in Beacon, New York with her family. Welcome to Burned by Books, Erin Summers.
Thank you for having me. What a great intro.
I've been dying to have you on since I read Stay Up with Hugo Best, which was the funniest book I read that year easily, and I still remember scenes from. But the 10-year affair has this wonderful conceit, which I described, of these two parallel existences for the flirty and increasingly intense friendship between these two married people with children, Cora and Sam. And of course, we recognize these fantasies from novels and from real life. But you've done something original and played that fantasy out over a decade. How'd you come up with this new version of the imagined affair? And did it play out the way you initially intended? Did Sam and Cora end up where you first imagined?
So the concept first came to me intuitively when I sat down to write a short story around a baby group, because I had had my first daughter and I didn't have any friends with kids. And so I sought out companionship in a baby group in Brooklyn. I was living in Brooklyn at the time. And I loved what I saw there in terms of just like, it was ridiculous. It was
Some of the best scenes in the novel are in the baby group.
It was a lot of very well-meaning people doing a lot of outlandish parenting techniques. People who are parenting the most, doing things they've seen on the internet and things they've read about and trying it all out in real time. And I was fascinated. And I thought, this is a setting and a milieu that is ripe for send up. And so I put it in my pocket until it sort of synthesized with another idea, or I could find a way in to write about these people. And finally, when I sat down to write it, I didn't even quite know that it was going to synthesize with an affair narrative. And I just sat down to write it. And the short story version, it was one of those really magical and incredibly rare writing moments where it just came out. Like one idea led to the other. And I hit on the conceit of the multiverse. I didn't hit on that until I typed that word into the draft and I began to describe her imagined affair that way. And then I thought, why don't I follow that? My unconscious has coughed up this great idea and I should take advantage of that if I can execute it. And yeah, so that's kind of where it came from. It just came out of the language intuitively of the short story. And, I'm sort of humble enough at this point in my career to follow those ideas that emerge organically.
So I have to ask, in your real life baby group, was there someone who was actively potty training their infant?
Yeah, that's where I got that.
Oh my God.
That was fully for real. And at first it was a woman who it was in the back room of a children's clothing store. Possibly it was a toy store. And there was a bathroom back there. And what she was actually doing, she didn't have a little potty with her at first. At first, she was running with a 6-week-old baby into the bathroom every few minutes and holding the baby over the toilet, as if the baby might begin potty training. And then as the baby got older, she did begin carrying a potty with her and would set the baby on it before it could really sit down. And I just remember having so much empathy for the baby who is a person, babies are people, and oblivious to this happening, really. And I just thought it was such fascinating behavior to be doing publicly.
It's amazing. And in the novel, the baby is successfully potty trained. Did that concur with the reality?
The baby was successfully potty trained in reality.
Oh my!
By about 12 months. I mean, she broke the baby's spirit, and the baby was doing it. And so, on the one hand, it was, we can make our judgments about it, but on the other hand, she did what she set out to do.
I mean, she's a fascist, but just as the fascists make the trains run on time, she made the baby potty train, so
exactly.
Fine. So one of the starkest differences between the 10-year affair and most novels of infidelity that I've read is that Cora's husband, Elliot, is not horrible at all. In fact, he is in many ways quite wonderful. The problem for Eliot is the problem for relationships that age. People begin to exist as habit for each other rather than as ravenous choice. The quotidian everyday starts to dim the best qualities of a partner, and traits that were endearing become annoying and sometimes gross. How did you handle your development of Eliot's character arc? He sometimes feels like he is standing still as this dynamic world of desire and its opposites move around him. But we still get through Cora a multi-textured vision of him ultimately. It's a bit of a magic trick. So how'd you do it?
I loved writing him, and he instantly felt real to me. What I wanted to do with Elliot was deliberately not make him the evil husband who she should obviously leave, and or for who you're rooting for her to cheat on. I wanted him to be cool and kind of a goofy slacker, and I wanted the reader to be able to see their rapport and see that they loved each other, and that's what makes the problem so intractable. And yeah, he is sort of a grounding force of the novel. He doesn't change that much. But I will say it was important to me to let Elliot keep his dignity, like not to humiliate over much. And also to, in the end, give him a little bit of redemption, like allow the reader to see that he was not so oblivious as maybe Cora thought the entire time. And he knew more, and he was being sort of generous with her and allowing her to flail and to figure things out.
That's a great way to put it. And he, there's a wonderful wonderful moment at a swimming pool where he's described as having his like most handsome or most attractive day. And all of a sudden we're like, as readers, we're like, oh wait, he's very attractive. Like these other women are like zhuzhing themselves to make themselves look good for him. And it's funny how easily that's lost when the kind of like serotonin overload of desire gets in the way.
Exactly. And I love that idea of everybody getting a single most attractive day.
I feel like mine is already done, though, so now I have nothing to look forward to.
You never know. Elliot's like, how old is he? They're middle age. It could still be coming for you.
Okay, all right, good. I'm holding out for it. You are one of the great humor writers working today. Certainly, you're in my top 5, and Hugo Best was the funniest thing I read that year. And the humor here in this novel courses through the body of the novel, even when it's about the most serious things with the most serious consequences. It's also the lifeblood for Cora in many ways, who kind of lives on a diet of satire and irony, but also for the reader who depends on your humor to reveal what's most important about the high-stakes personal disasters. How does humor come into your craft? Is it what draws first blood for you, or does it get layered as you're going? And how central is it to your ability to work through difficult topics?
I always worry when I sit down to write something or start something new, what if I'm not funny this time? Like what if somehow I've lost the ability to be funny? Because it's really the thing that gets me to the desk and keeps me interested in a project is I get to be funny. I get to sit down and amuse myself and try to surprise myself. So it is the very foundational element of what I'm doing, I think. And I am always pushing to be funnier, to be more precise and surprising and make the dialogue funnier. And I think it's important. It's like humor is a way of being a friend to your reader and inviting the reader in and inviting the reader to instantly connect and to identify. And I think it is just the key to my writing completely.
Do you trust your gut when about something being funny, or do you need an outside reader to kind of test it for you?
I usually know, but I do read exchanges aloud to my husband to see if he laughs. I'll be like, come up here. I need, I have an office on the third floor of our house, and I'll make him come upstairs and dutifully listen to something I've written to see, and then watch the reaction on his face to see if it's hitting.
Would you read from what I think of in my mind as a now infamous scene from the novel? It's at a parent-baby group where Sam and Cora first met, and then it concerns a new member who's very excited to talk to Cora about her very special birth experience.
I'd be happy to. One of the moms who was always at the group had white lady dreads and wore brown hemp pants with a brown hemp shirt. She sat beside Cora the next week, where Sam usually sat, and introduced herself as Liz. Cora started to tell her the spot was saved, but then felt stupid and didn't. She texted Sam, "Are you coming?" No response. Liz laid her baby out in front of her. It was one of those big babies you sometimes saw, 99th percentile, legs like stacked marshmallows. Miles looked measly by comparison. The baby dragged herself towards him and put a hand in his eye. Cora gently removed it. Liz said, "Yeah, she grabs eyeballs. Sorry, Bonnie, knock it off." Bonnie spotted a wooden dog in the vicinity of Broccoli Mom and lost interest in Miles. Liz began describing a podcast she'd heard about women who had orgasms while giving birth. It was fascinating, she said. It hadn't been studied as much as it should have because it impacted only women. If men were the ones who had babies, you'd better believe there'd be exhaustive research by now. There'd be a pill you could take to make it easier for you to get off while giving birth. "Here," she said. She fished in her bag and pulled out a grubby tangle of earbuds. She straightened them out and plugged them into her phone, and before it was clear what was happening, shoved one in Cora's ear. She put the other in her own ear, and they sat listening to the voice of a woman describing the orgasm she'd had during labor. "I came so hard," said the voice. "I never wanted it to stop. It felt different from sex because it was the pressure. It's hard to describe. It originated inside me, on the other end, the top. And as it was happening, at the height of it, there was a baby forcing its way through me, through my gigantic cervix." Sorry. The door opened and Sam entered and took off his shoes. He wore socks printed with fir trees and a chambray shirt. His jeans were only mildly terrible. Cora knew by then that his baby was named Penelope, and she was exactly 1 week older than Miles. She took the earbud out. "Okay, I mean, that's awesome, but..." Sam settled in on the other side, mouthing, "Sorry." "I had an orgasm during labor," said Liz. "Or anyway, I was close. That's why I'm interested. They say it happens with big babies." She motioned at the pale globe of Bonnie's head. "It either totally fucks you up forever or you come." Cora caught Sam's eye and looked away to keep from laughing. Again, he offered her a toothpick, and again she accepted. "What was your labor like?" Liz asked Cora. "Did you come?" Cora had received an epidural in her spine and a button she could press for more Percocet. She pressed it a lot, even after the nurse told her to taper off so she could feel when to push. She definitely hadn't come. Both of her births had been routine and terrifying, primitive in spite of the technology. So much blood plus a placenta that came flopping out of you at the end like a jellyfish. "It was normal," said Cora. 3 days in the hospital." "A hospital," said Broccoli Mom. "Interesting." "Is that bad?" "No, of course not. It's a choice every woman has to make for herself. Personally, I was too afraid of the cascading interventions to consider a hospital. If things don't move fast enough, they induce you, and before you know it, they're giving you a C, not to mention the high mortality rates for mothers of color." Cora looked at her for a long moment. "You're white." "Yes, but it's the principle," said Broccoli Mom. "Anyway, my doula is a genius, and my birth experience was life-changing, for both me and my partner." "All birth experiences are life-changing," said Sam. "They result in a baby." He shimmied Penelope out of her tiny hoodie and placed her on her stomach. Cora's relief at his being there was immense.
Thank you so much. I don't think I've ever actively cried during someone reading it, but there's so many lines in there that are they're just amazing. And there is something about the fact that it is labor that's being talked about. And this extraordinary, just the friction between this woman's kind of ecstatic remembrance of her incredibly large baby, coming out of her cervix, and this, sexual pleasure, and then the amazing internal description Cora has of just trying to hit the Percocet as much as she can. Can you tell me a little bit about how you crafted this scene?
Some of those side characters really spring to life fully formed. And the women of the baby group were
I
that.
hate Broccoli Mom, by the way. I hate her so much.
Yeah, Broccoli Mom. So Broccoli Mom came to me sort of fully formed, and so did this woman, Liz. And really with the characters that you don't have to necessarily make fully round, they're just really fun because you can make them silly and then they're gone. They don't wear out their welcome by being sort of over the top, and they are the most fun to write. So that's how the various members of the baby group came to be.
In order to stay in each other's lives in a real way without necessarily sleeping together, Sam and Cora concoct ways to intertwine their family lives, with Cora spending an increasing amount of time with Sam's wife, Jules. At least in a surface way, they become friends and confide in one another. This does great work of deepening the practical and emotional cost of an affair. You lose friendships, families, a way of life. But it also asks what we think we know about our closest friendships. Can you talk about the role of friendship in the novel and how it has different forms of meaning and ways that it illuminates other aspects of our life?
The book is an affair novel, but it's also secretly a friendship novel, Trojan horsed in there. I think that Cora's friendship with Jules is a really compelling piece of the novel because it's so tangled and it's so fraught, and they get along, but they don't get along. They are kind of opposites, but Cora does find Jules darkly appealing. And so I never tired of digging into interactions between the two of them. And I found it really fun and really interesting to imagine what it looked like for these two women to raise children side by side for 10 years.
Hmm.
The holidays are coming up, and that means friends and family are going to be in your house. Is your house ready? I know mine wasn't. So I went to Wayfair to make sure that I had everything I needed to entertain and put these people up during the holiday season. Wayfair is the place to shop for all things you need for your home, from sofas to spatulas. And listen to this, starting October 30th, you can shop Wayfair's can't miss Black Friday deals all month long. You can get up to 70% off. Wayfair will ship your items fast and free. Now, in my case, I needed new bedding. My bedding was shot. So what did I do? Well, I went to Wayfair and I bought some new sheets and pillowcases. I also bought a comforter simply because I thought it was beautiful. It was very easy to order them. The price was right. Shipping was free, and they came well before I needed them. So don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday deals for up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th.
Score the perfect gift at Dick's Sporting Goods. Start your wish list with top picks from Nike, Jordan, FP Movement, and more. Shop trending shoes, golf gear, water bottles, and more of this year's hottest gifts. Need it fast? Stop by your local store or use the Dick's app for quick pickup or delivery. Visit dicksportinggoods.com to shop this year's best holiday gifts at Dick's.
Yeah, Jules, for me, at times feels very unlikable, although it's the Lech Richard that runs away with the prize. But she is infinitely relatable. She's work and sometimes status obsessed and fundamentally unhappy, even when her life seems ordered and content. When she has a real affair that comes undone, when she's thrown over for a much younger woman, she comes to a stark conclusion. Happiness is only for children. She says, it's like when you're 8 and you get an ice cream, a cotton candy. My kids are happy. They're happy because the things they want are attainable. They want something. I get it for them. Adults are after something else. They're after something interesting. Interesting is better than happy. That feels both catastrophic and so undeniably true that it's difficult to read the words aloud. Is Jules wrong?
I don't know if she is. They're at a party when she says this, and she is not sober. And there is the question of, is she right? Or is this a rationalization that she has come up with to explain or, let herself get away with her bad behavior. And I don't think that the book gives an easy answer to that. Like, I don't know. And I don't know. I think that there's a tension there in that scene about whether Cora doesn't necessarily buy into it, but doesn't dismiss it out of hand either. So I would like to think that we can all be happy. I hope we can, but I don't know.
But there is I think what you touch upon there that I don't think it's said aloud a lot is that the way of quantifying happiness seems to change so dramatically from that moment of getting an ice cream to thinking about waking up and getting the kids to school. Something profound happens in how we quantify happiness. Is that more the question then?
I think so. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. What does make adults happy? I find the things that make me happy are like really surprising to me these days, and they aren't the things I think. What makes me really happy is like it's really just like being with my kids when I thought it would be career achievement. It's like it's none of the things that you think it's going to be. It's like some quiet thing that's like over to the side is like where happiness can be found. And it's not, it's just like none of these like conventional signifiers that we've been, trained to want.
The subtitle of the 10-year affair should be careful what you wish for. You really put flesh on the bones of Cora's imagined affair with Sam by dramatizing how fully we give ourselves over to fantasies of another life with another person. And you also make it clear that what is at stake when those fantasies cross the threshold into a physical reality. But you really do give us the emotional fullness of this very long affair of the fantasy mind. What did you want readers to think and feel about the realness of an imagined affair?
I wanted it to begin to feel like a real relationship in the imagined world. And that included the way a real relationship grows overfamiliar or loses its luster. And so that sort of played for laughs in the novel, which is like, why is she finds herself imagining these sort of like deflating or depressing things at a certain point where in the world of the fantasy, for instance, she gets an abortion. And the comedy of it is, why would she be having something fraught and, and upsetting or difficult to deal with happen to her and, in her fantasy life? So it follows the rhythms of a real affair. And I wanted the reader mostly to laugh, but also to find poignance in the way she imagines it.
I mean, so there's this great line. Cora thinks relationships came of age, and this was what was happening. It meant that they would have the full menu: camaraderie, desire, indiscretion, pleasure, pain, and loss. And they would discover the limits of their feelings for each other. We don't often get that full menu in depictions of fantasy. So can you say a little bit more, like why did you want that full menu of emotional complexities to be so present in the affair?
You found my favorite line. I guess that I was just thinking about, I'm a person that's hungry for life. And I think a lot of people are this way. And my hunger for life is that I want the whole picture. I want every feeling. I want to know it all. And that's going to include, pain and loss. And so I gave that hunger to Cora, and she's trying to live it out through the affair, that the affair is a way for her to take emotional risks and to feel new things and to get this wider breadth of experience.
While it's not a COVID novel per se, the 10-year affair exists through the pandemic, and COVID puts a spotlight on just how closed our lives became and how desperate we were for socialization. Part of me thinks that in fiction and in our despoiled reality, COVID was merely an accelerant to our awareness of alienation and disconnection from others. That feels at the root of what Cora and Sam are going through. So how does COVID work here? Metaphor, virus, something in between?
I think that you're exactly right, that it was an accelerant for alienation and isolation. And it caused many people to become lonely in new and terrible ways and shifted society enormously. And it happens about halfway through the novel, which isn't an accident. And it does sort of accelerate the Cora turning more to Sam and becoming closer to Sam. So, yeah, I think that it is a metaphor, certainly. It's a device. And I wanted to mimic the way that it caused a huge shift in many people and made many people's, grasp of reality slip further.
Yeah, it certainly feels, in retrospect, it feels more and more like that. It's impossible to talk about any of the pathos in this novel without understanding how each character engages with the inevitability of aging and even death. For in our first half of life or so, one proceeds with a sense that time stretches almost infinitely out in front of you. Everything is potential. At some point that changes. Our parents age before us and eventually die, and we become exquisitely aware of our mortality, or even simply the visible aging of our bodies. Later in the novel, Cora thinks they had met in early parenthood and their older children were now preteens. Lines appeared around her eyes and on either side of her mouth. Time softened you, but it also made things more urgent. They would really and truly die one day, Eliot had said. Cora and Sam sat on the bed, the years pressed down. So the urgency of age, how does it, I think that's a wonderful way of putting it and feels so true, like painfully true. How did you want the urgency of age to run through all these different kinds of relationships?
All these people are on the verge of turning 40 in the book, which is not old by any means, but it is maybe the age where you start to think about mortality and you do start to feel like the hourglass is running out. You're in the second half of your life now, most likely. And I think that infidelity can be very related to a fear of mortality and a fear that your youth is getting away from you or is behind you and that you don't have that much time left. And it can cause people to feel a little bit frantic and a little bit like they are not taking advantage, and they've got to squeeze every drop of living out of every moment because it's not objectively that much time. And I wanted that to be felt throughout, especially in the second half of the book. As they creep up on 40, I wanted there to be almost, a feeling of increased pressure and almost like a frenzied feeling around it. Like we gotta live our lives. We gotta live our lives. We're gonna die.
Yeah, and you absolutely feel that frenzy in it. I think you were very successful in it, and I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it plays out that frenzy into in some ways a very unexpected final climax. But Erin, before I let you go, I would love to know a little bit about what you've been reading and what you've been loving recently, and if you have any recommendations for us.
Well, I recently read Flesh, the novel that's shortlisted for the Booker. And it is incredible. It's by David Slay. I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly.
I don't know how to say it either, but I know what you're talking about.
It is wonderful. Wonderful. It's very intense. It's very surprising. It's about a guy who had, as a teenager, was in a sexually abusive relationship with his neighbor across the hall, who was an adult woman. And then after that incident plays out, you get the story of the rest of his life, and it's never mentioned again. But you feel this incident or this series of incidents bubbling beneath the whole thing in a way and informing the whole thing in a way that's sort of miraculous. And I don't know how he pulled it off, that he makes you think about it without having to tell you to. And it is just unbelievably well executed. It blew me away. It's a very sad book, but it is so impressive and so well done.
What was his book of short stories that was like the best exploration of toxic masculinity I've ever read? I can't remember the name of it, but
I know what you're talking about, and I have read it, but I can't remember the title right now. Yeah, he's extraordinary.
Yeah, this sounds so amazing.
It is amazing. And the other book I've loved recently was Loved and Missed by Susie Boyd, which is an NYRB book, but not a reissued, one of their, new releases. And she is from the UK, and it's about a grandmother who has to raise her granddaughter because her daughter has substance use issues. And it's just about how fraught and fragile those family dynamics are. And I don't know if a novel has made me cry, like not in many years, with like tears rolling down my face.
Oh my gosh.
But it's also not just that. It's got such a light touch. It's funny. It's beautiful. That's the novel that I've been recommending to absolutely everyone in every corner of my life. And they all text me like, that's the best book I've read this year. So I gave it to my mom. I gave it to my sisters. I've recommended it to 4 different friends. And I just really think it's so brilliant.
You're the second person to have recommended on the podcast. So I think,
oh, wow.
And your description just there means I need to buy it immediately. And I'm going to get both of those books because they're both on my radar and they look great. But I want to I can't recommend enough The 10-Year Affair by Erin Summers. You just aren't going to read another book about infidelity that is really about everything in our messy, wonderful human lives, and with such wit and humor. And while if you're new to Erin Summers and you're in the bookstore, also buy Stay Up with Hugo Best, because the two of them are a wonderful pairing. And it was so great to get to talk to you, Erin. This was such a delight.
Thank you so much, Chris. This was amazing.
Thank you. Well, that's all from me for now. My thanks to Erin Summers for coming on to talk about her latest hilarious novel, The 10-Year Affair. You can find links to purchase The 10-Year Affair and all of Erin's recommended books at the website burnedbybooks.com. There you'll find all of our previous episodes, links to buy a podcast t-shirt, and ways to get in contact. As you listen, take a moment to rate the show on iTunes, Spotify, and now YouTube, or wherever you find your podcasts. Until next time, this has been Burned by Books.